Okay, a very good afternoon to all of you. Today we have gathered over here for the fourth day of the orientation program for the B.Sc 5th SEM, and along with them other students are also there. So we will have a guest lecture today by Dr. Mosam Bhattacharya. Dr. Mosam Bhattacharya is an assistant professor and head of the Department of Physiology, Human Physiology at Government Degree College in Dharmanagar, Tripura. And he did his master's in physiology from University of Calcutta, India. Actually, he is a batchmate of mine. And thereafter, he worked as a research scholar in DPAS, Defense Institute of Physiology and Allied Sciences, where many of you will go for your dissertations, etc. And then during his tenure as a research scholar at DPAS, he participated in an expedition member for the Indian scientific expedition to Antarctica. And he carried out most of his PhD work in Antarctica on the topic melatonin rhythm and sleep patterns in Antarctica. And he stayed there for 14 months in Antarctica for doing his research. And he obtained his PhD degree from Bharatihar University, Coimbatore, because the institute needs a university to give the degree. And his research interest basically lies in the field of human sleep and circadian rhythm. And presently, as I already said, he is an assistant professor in the Government Degree College at Dharmanagar, Tripura. And he has several publications in national and international journals and book chapters. And not only that, I personally know him as a friend, and he is a very good cricketer also. So welcome, Dr. Mosam, and our HOI, Madam Dr. Aparna Sarkar, will give you an address, and then start.
Very good afternoon, everyone, for joining us today to attend the guest lecture. So, I, Dr. Aparna Sarkar, on the behalf of AMITY Institute of Physiology and Allied Sciences, welcome Dr. Mosam Bhattacharya, Assistant Professor, Head of the Department of Physiology, Government College in Tripura. So, Dr. Mosam, we are very much thankful to you for accepting our invitation and for delivering a lecture for our students and the faculty of our AIPAS, our institute, as well as for our university. So, we welcome Dr. Mosam. Please you carry on the session.
Thank you, madam.
Just before Dr. Mosam starts, I would like to mention that Dr. Joyita Banerjee from Anandamohan College, Kolkata, is also here with us as a guest. And Dr. Mosam's topic would be opportunities and scopes in physiology for the ignited minds. Dr. Mosam, please, the podium is yours.
Welcome, Dr. Joyita Banerjee, for joining us today.
Thank you, Aparna madam.
Thank you,
Dr. Sudipta, for introducing me so nicely to your students. And I wish you all a very good afternoon. And so, can I share my screen?
Yeah, you can.
Okay.
Yes, please share it.
Can you see my screen?
Not yet.
Can you see it now?
It's coming up, maybe. Just wait for a moment. Yeah, it's there.
Okay, so dear students, thank you for attending this session. And as you can see that I have been asked by your teachers, Dr. Sudipta Saha and Madam Aparna Sarkar, Dr. Aparna Sarkar, to tell you something on the opportunities and scope in the subject which you are doing your B.Sc, right? So I think that in today's world, when we were doing our B.Sc, we didn't have this smart thing, which is known as Internet of Things. But now you have that in your hands. You have a smart device where I think no information is hidden from you, isn't it? So still, I think if an orientation can be given to our students into what the subject is and what are the applications, what are the applied fields of the subject. We know we are always confined to some subjects, we are ignorant about the others, right? So I would like to give you an entire opportunity of the subject which you are doing. So as you see from my first slide, that obviously it comes in your mind that why do we need to study physiology, right? And of course, your minds are ignited minds. You see, we have become aged, right? We cannot take in what you can take in, right, in your mind. So you can receive a lot of information, you can assess a lot of information, but what we have is we have the experience which you lack. Now, if we combine both the things, right, your receive and your reception and our experience, I think that would be a nice thing to do. So that is what I'm trying to tell you in my lecture. So to start with, right, so this is you. You can see my screen?
Yes, sir,
Yes.
we can.
Yes, sir.
Now this is you, right? And when I talk about scope, I will be talking about several doors which will lead you to an entry into a specific zone of that subject. Okay, so let us start with the first door. You can see over here that over here I have named the first door as cellular physiology. Now we all know that human physiology or physiology, right? We all are made up of that basic unit, structural and functional unit of life, which is the cell. So that is one avenue of the subject which we can study, cellular physiology. Then inside the cell we have biomolecules, right? We have these carbohydrates, we have these proteins, we have these fats, we have these vitamins, minerals, DNA, RNA, and whatnot. Okay, so we enter another door, we enter another avenue, we find another scope of the subject, which is biochemistry and molecular biology. Now, after that, we enter in another door, which is immunology, right? You must have had an idea of immunology by now because of this COVID-19 pandemic and vaccines coming out of the box, right? So many research institutes, so many industry, they are running after finding out a new solution to this COVID-19 pandemic. Okay, so what is immunology? Immunology is how our body combats the foreign pathogens. Okay, the next door, which I have labeled for you, is neurophysiology. So you must have an idea of what neurophysiology is all about. It is about receiving information. Our nerves carry those informations to the brain, to the spinal cord. It gets processed, and we react to that information in our own way. So there are circuits, there are systems which are involved in the process, in the neuroprocessing of information, and in the coordination, in the motor activity of any action, right? The next door which I want you to enter in physiology is ergonomics and work physiology. Now, this is a very interesting subject. I don't know how many of you know about it, but I'll try to give you some idea about what ergonomics and work physiology is. You know, ergo means work, right? So ergonomics and work physiology deals with the human who is the operator of a system. The operation can be anything, right? You can be sitting on a table studying, or you can fly an aircraft, a jet fighter. You can fly a jet fighter, or you might be a worker in a factory where there is intolerable heat. So how during that operation your body reacts, or how you can minimize the effects of those conditions to your body. We deal all these things in ergonomics and work physiology. Okay, the next door that in which I would like you to enter is sports and exercise physiology. Well, now you know that the Indian Olympic team has been flagged off for the Tokyo Olympics. So sports and exercise physiology is an arena where we physiologists, or you who are taking up physiology as a career can contribute immensely. Because you see, to win a competition, we have to make athletes. And to make an athlete, a lot of science is involved. So who will be that scientist? It is you who can come into this area. You can contribute into this area, and you can help build better athletes and sportspersons of our country. Well, the next avenue that I want you to know about is deep sea physiology. Now, this is an extreme condition. This is not normal. Okay, have you heard of this term deep sea physiology? You must have seen submarines. You must have seen divers going deep into the sea. You must have heard of miners going deep into the mines. So these are extraordinary environments, right? So how the human body or the human physiological system reacts, and what are the avenues, right? I won't be telling you about what all these things are. I will give you an idea. I will try to give you all an idea about how to get into this profession, right? Each one of them individually. I'll try my best. I don't know how much I can, but I'll try. So that is all about deep sea physiology. Okay. The next thing that you must have heard of is high altitude physiology. You must have seen soldiers. They're posted in Ladakh, Leh, and in the high up in the mountains where they're guarding our borders. Okay. So how, if you go in the mountain, how do you feel? Can you walk normally as you were in the sea level, sea land? There must be something which happens to your body, right? You get tired, you feel breathlessness. But how do our soldiers cope up with all those? Not only do they cope up, they remain alert, they remain vigilant, and they guard our borders from the enemies of our country. So how do they do that? So there is a lot of physiology, there is a lot of training, there is a lot of acclimatization which is carried out applying the science of physiology. Then only they can contribute to that level. The next door which I want you to go to is aviation physiology. Now, what is aviation physiology? You must have seen Air Force pilots flying these jet flights. These are supersonic jet flights. These are not the flight which I and you take, right? Those are normal flights. But still, when you get into the flight, you feel that your ears get blocked. You swallow to open up your ears. But in case of those jet flight, high-speed fighter planes, there is a lot of gravity which the pilot faces and how he copes up with that. So there also you have a lot of physiology to be understood and, of course, to apply in the training process of those fighter pilots so that they become combat ready. The most interesting thing, now this Virgin Atlantic you must have heard of, they send a flight to space. They're going for space tourism. My God, they will be using space for tourism. I don't know how good it would be. But nevertheless, since technology is advancing at a rapid pace, we have to run with that. We have to keep our pace with the technology. Otherwise, we'll lag behind. So this is one arena, and India is entering into the realm of space physiology. You know, Mangalyaan will be launched in the near future, and astronauts will be sent by ISRO. So how to make those astronauts equipped with all the science, which includes physiology, so that they can operate in that environment. So these are the avenues. There are many more, but I thought of introducing you to only these. Later on, if I get an opportunity, I will interact with you again, and I'll try to say something more about each one of these avenues or each one of these scopes. So let us start with Olympics. India is sending a team to Olympics, right? We have athletes, we have distance runners, we have sprinters, we have swimmers, we have weightlifters, and what all. Name a sport, we are contributing to each and every stream of sports in the Olympics. But as a physiologist, what can we do to equip, to make our athletes better? Well, there are some measurements which can quantify which athlete, or when you are trying to make an athlete for athlete or sports person for a particular sport, right? We have some measurements, we take in some estimates through which we can tell that, okay, he is good for football, he is good for basketball, he would be a good swimmer, right? So like this, there are various physiological parameters. Those are very simple parameters, but they have to be recorded, or they have to be measured in actual environments or in real-time environments, right? So we have exercise physiology laboratories. In our country, we have. I'll show you where you can get the opportunity to pursue your career as an exercise physiologist or a sports science scientist from the background of physiology itself. So we have these research and development facilities in exercise physiology, where athletes are in simulated environments. They are allowed to carry out their sports, and during that course of that activity, we record physiological parameters, and we intervene. The exercise physiologists intervene. We ask them to do a particular type of training by which they could improve their performance. Now, how do we come to know that whether that particular sports person or that particular athlete or that particular swimmer is performing well? We see those values. We see the heart rate. We see the oxygen consumption. We see the sweat rate. We see the perceivedness of how he's coping with that stress, with that hard performance, right? So we evaluate all those values and we come to the conclusion, okay, now he's up to the mark to be sent off for an elite platform like Olympics. So you can see my you can see the picture. You can see my slide. Can you see my slides?
Yeah, it's visible.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
It's a treadmill picture.
Okay. Now, see, then my next slide shows about the science of swimming faster, the thing that I was telling you, right? It's a very good book. If you have time, you can go through this book. If you're interested, you can go through it. It's a very nice book, right? It tells about how a swimmer can swim faster. And it tells about the techniques, the science, the exercise, right? On the basis of physiological parameters of our body while performing that type of sport, while performing swimming. Okay, so this is how we can help in the sports arena of our country. Well, over here you can see the science and practice of strength training in weightlifting. Also, you can see in the figure that there are so many muscles which are involved in this weightlifting activity, right? And you know how we measure muscle activity? We do electromyography or EMG. Now, EMG gives the tension of each and individual muscle which you want to record. And since so many muscles are involved over here, in the next slide you can see that over here in a lab, see this weightlifter is doing the weightlifting and he has electrodes attached to his thigh muscle. Okay, so and here is the exercise physiologist who is recording the EMG patterns. So he can know that how much tension his muscle develops, whether there is any scope to improve the lifting of more weights by this weightlifter. So by these measures, we can actually, contribute to this specific area. Now, about the opportunities, I know I think I need to zoom a little bit. You must have heard of Sports Authority of India. Now, Sports Authority of India is an organization of our country, is a reputed organization of our country which deals with making athletes, right? And you have exercise physiologists there. And you can see this is an old advertisement which I have picked up for you, where it says that Sports Authority of India invites online application for exercise physiologists, right? And if I go a little bit now, you can see that the essential qualification over here is human physiology. So I wanted to tell you that how in our country also we can get engaged, right? We physiologists can be engaged by ourselves into this sort of activity. Okay, let's see in the international scenario. Now, this is another website which shows the job profile as an exercise physiologist, and you can see that. You can see that how much they pay you, right? It is 18,000 to 35,000 pounds, right? Which can be up to 60,000 or 1 lakh pounds, right? So it's a lot of money. So it's a very good career for us. Okay, so where you will be engaged in an exercise physiologist lab, or you will be engaged with a team. Maybe why not? Some of you might be in with this SC Barcelona as an exercise physiologist, because you know the science. You know the science of how to make footballers, right? So you can be that. You should dream of that. The thing is that we do not dream. If we are made to dream, I think we would achieve what we dream of. So this is one opportunity of this career as an exercise physiologist, which is, of course, one of the scope of physiology. Okay. Now, the next thing, the next scope, which is also, I think it is a allied sort of area with exercise physiology, is yoga, right? You must be having yoga institute or yoga center in your university. I've gone through the web page. You have a very good faculty over there, and you have a collaboration with Morarji Desai National Institute of Yoga. Now, in this slide, you can see that this lady is performing yoga. Okay, and he's attached with a breath analyzer over here. So what this breath analyzer does, it estimates your oxygen consumption, your carbon dioxide output, your metabolic activity, everything during performing that yoga posture or that yogasana. Okay, so in that way we can, help this yoga practitioners to see how they can perform better, or how it can contribute to better health. Now, these are the institute, Morarji Desai National Institute of Yoga, where you can get yourself associated. Just put them a mail. You mail them. Put them an email. You're interested in pursuing a career in yoga. What are the things that you need to do? How can you approach? Go and do a training, short-term training in your course. Incorporate. If it is incorporated in your course, you can do a short-term training with them so that you can gain experience for applying for a better career in the field of yoga. Okay, so your institute, your university also has a very good yoga institute, AMITY Institute of Indian System of Medicine, where you have a collaboration with Morarji Desai National Institute of Yoga. So go out and explore it. Okay, you may find it good for your career also. Now, okay. Now the next scope which I'm going to talk about is the physiology of aviation, right? Aviation physiology, which I was telling you. Now you can see that is the fighter pilot. Okay, he's putting up on his gears and he is subjected. I told you that it is not like the normal flight which we take. In the normal flight, you have seen that you felt that your ears get blocked. Some of you may feel nausea. Okay, so it is. I tell you that it is some 100 times much serious thing faced by these fighter pilots, right? Where they're subjected to a lot of G-force, gravitational force, right? You can see that this is the circulatory system. The blood gets pulled down when you're subjected to, when you suddenly take off, right? Suddenly the pilot does a takeoff thing. His blood gets pulled to the lower extremities of the body, right? So you can imagine that when his blood gets pulled down to the lower extremities of his body, his brain, the circulation to his brain, the circulation to his head gets cut off. So that is very serious, because neurons in the brain, they need glucose for metabolism, and the brain uses the maximum amount of glucose. So if your blood circulation gets minimized there, So how will the neurons take up the glucose, and how will they metabolize it and release energy? So it becomes a very serious issue. So we need to train those aviation pilots, the fighter pilots, in such a way, so that they can manage, or they can survive in those extreme G-force conditions. So this is where you can contribute to a lot. Now this is a training session of this fighter pilots. In this picture you can see, and in the background you can see there are doctors, there physiologists, there aviation physiologists who are training, who are recording the parameters during the actual simulation environment. So this is where you can be one of them also. Okay. Now in India, where can you pursue such a career? Now, there is an institute of the Indian Air Force, which is known as the Indian Institute of Aerospace Medicine in Bangalore, and they are the aeromedical solution provider, right? So what they do is they are concerned with the maintenance of health and performance of air crew in aviation and space environment. Okay, and you can see over here in the lower part of this slide that there are experimental setups, there are simulators where these fighter pilots, they get their training, and and during that course of training, their parameters, their physiological parameters are recorded, right? You can see that aerospace medicine specialists, clinical specialists, physiologists, right? The physiologists are also engaged over here, in order to train the fighter pilots of a country. Okay. Now, if you see that in the international scenario, this is an advertisement which I have collected from the internet. Aerospace and operational physiologist, right? It's in US, I think it's in Alabama, and you can see that how much they pay, right? $30,000 to $51,000 a year. Okay, and what you need to do? They train air crews to handle fatigue, stress, and other challenges of operating in high gravitation force environments. That was exactly what I was trying to tell you. So here also you can contribute, you can pursue a career in the field of aviation physiology also. Okay, now let's get into space physiology, that space tourism and thing which I was talking about. Now in the right hand of the screen you can see an astronaut who is literally flying, because you know that in the space station there is no gravity. Now imagine if there is no gravity, what would happen to you? Right. Now, the interesting part of physiology is that you can compare yourself, you can just close your eyes and you can just go to that place where this man is. And you can realize, because you are physiologist, you know that how our body reacts and what all are the factors which allow us to maintain our homeostasis, normal homeostasis. But over here, it is devoid of any gravitational force. This astronaut, he literally flies. His bone strength gets reduced, right? And these are the symptoms which you see in this. If I zoom out, I think you can see it. Yeah, now you can see. I think. See, these are the symptoms. His eyes becomes the main way to sense motion, because he cannot sense motion because there is no gravity, right? And the otoliths in the inner ear, they respond differently to motion, right? There are changes in sensory input. It confuses the brain, right? It causes disorientation. He doesn't have the position of the sense of position where he is. Okay, because there is no gravity, because he cannot touch the ground. Now, how do you cope in that situation? Now you can see over here that this astronaut is doing some sort of exercise on a treadmill inside the space station while is tied to the floor of the treadmill. If she wouldn't have been tied on the floor of the treadmill, she would have flew like this. Sorry. Yeah, sorry for that. She would have been in this position. Okay, so there are ways, there are different guidelines, there are different protocols for these astronauts to become vigilant, right? To become, to retain their strength, right? To retain their agility while performing. Now, these tasks are very high density tasks. You understand what I think you understand what high density tasks are. Tasks where there is very less chance of error. If in the international or in the space station, if an astronaut does a minute error, then you can imagine how devastating that can be. It can be a cost to the lives of the astronaut. It will be a total failure of the whole project, right? It would be a devastating economic loss for the nation. Okay, so this is where we can contribute. We can help these astronauts to perform better in those situations. I'm not going into the depth. I'm just giving you all an idea about what are the applications of what are the applications of physiology are. Well, this is a clippings taken from the India Today, where it says that there are a career in space. There are 9 career options, right, in space, which you want to choose. Now, one of them is space research and academics, where you can see there's biochemists, biophysicists, and biologists or physiologists. They can be involved, and they can, help astronauts to go up in there and perform at their optimum, right, or perform at their best. Then you have space tourism coming up now. Now you see this Virgin Galactic, SpaceX, Blue Origin, uh, Orion Span Space Hotel, and Boeing, right? So you can be a part of them also, right? You can get involved with them, a lot of money, right? And a very good career. So they will be looking out for you. This Virgin Galactic, I know what his name is, some Richard Branson or someone. So he might be looking out for you only. Young, energetic, ignited minds. Well, another application which uh, of this space physiologist is, NASA. NASA has a program which is the Human Research Program, and in this Human Research Program, what they do is they have simulators. Simulators means they have environments. They have created artificial environments where the astronauts are put to tested, and they record all the clinical, the physiological, the biochemical parameters of those astronauts for some long duration of time, and they can choose, or they can recruit that who all are best suited for the mission. So this is a very big program in collaboration with a lot of international laboratories going on in NASA, and of course, you who knows, you might be one of them also. Okay. The next thing which I want to tell you about physiology is the high altitude physiology. Now, high altitude, all of you must have been in mountains. Okay. So what is the reaction that you face? How do you feel when you go up there? The first symptom that you face is breathlessness, right? You find difficulty to breathe. Then how are our soldiers so high in the mountains, the icy, the snowy peaks of Leh or Ladakh, right, Siachen? How easily do they carry out their tasks? And I tell you, their task is not so easy. That the tasks are not like the ones that which we do normally, right? What do? I teach, you study, but they do not do that type of work. They do that high density job, right? They have to be vigilant, they have to be alert, right? And they have to take a physical toll on their physiological system, because you see, they have to climb peaks, they have to guard the peaks. From the base camp, they have to trek, they have to go to that point, and they have to stay there. They have duty shifts, right? One soldier would guard for say about 6 to 7 hours, then he will be relieved. The next one will come in. So it is a continuous process. So you can imagine that in that situation, how difficult it is to stay there, right? If I would have gone there, uh, I wouldn't have survived for say 1 or 2 hours. Okay, but how they stay there and they guard the borders, they guard the snowy peaks from the enemies of our country for such a long time. You see the condition. See, these are the symptoms which have been written over here. I've taken this slide from the internet. Right, you face the soldiers face lack of oxygen, which cause headaches, decrease in brain function. Over here also you get disoriented because in high altitude what happens? The atmospheric pressure is low, so the percentage of oxygen is low in that atmospheric air. Now you need oxygen for survival. You need that oxygen to get into your blood through the lungs, right? From the lungs, it goes into the hemoglobin. The hemoglobin carries that oxygen to the cells. The cells take in that oxygen. They metabolize that oxygen, right? They generate ATP. Your muscles use that ATP to contract, and then you can walk, or then you can run and do all sorts of activities, right? So if you are facing lack of oxygen, how can you in that situation, how can you perform, how can you do such type of intensive physical activity? So that is where we need to get in. We need to train them. We need to uh, we need to uh, tell them how they need to be acclimatized. If you uh, take a soldier directly to say about 5,000 meters, right, he will be disoriented, right? He will face mountain sickness. He cannot perform his duty. So how gradually you are going to take him slowly to that point, right? You need to give him breaks. You need to give him chance to adapt or acclimatize in the lower heights, and then slowly you need to take him to that point or to that station where he is to be posted. So this is all about physiology, right? Because you are going to record all those parameters because you know what those parameters mean, what oxygen consumption, what this the respiratory rate, what heart rate, and all other parameters mean for the physiological system. Okay, so this is where we can get in. So you see over here it is written physical challenges on the Everest, right? We face hypobaric hypoxia where the pressure is very low, and we face lack of oxygen, which is hypoxia. Over here you can see that in these mountains, snowy mountains, there is absolutely in those stations or in those barracks where the soldiers stay, there absolutely no space. They are cramped. Okay, but still how they stay there, they do their activities and they perform their duties. So it is not an easy job. Okay. Now, where can you get into this high altitude physiology in our country? Now, you must have heard of Defense Institute of Physiology, where I did my PhD. So, Defense Institute of Physiology and Allied Sciences, it is one of the institute of the Defense Research and Development Organization, where they build soldiers, right? They build elite soldiers, soldiers who are capable of going to those extreme environments, capable of performing their duties to the optimum, right? While staying in those extreme environments. So for that, in the past we have a simulation environment where a simulation chamber where the soldiers are undergone the process of acclimatization to high altitude. Okay. Now you can see this is another thing where not only soldiers, mountaineers also, they go to these heights. It's a sport. And over here you can see this is the pyramid lab in the base of the Everest, Mount Everest, where there is actually a setup for conducting all this research activity on mountaineers. Right? It's in Nepal. So this is one area where we can go into. Now the next thing which I want to tell you is from high up in the mountains to deep down in the sea. Now you can see over here, this is a photograph of a submarine. Now in the submarine, what we have, what we face? We face high pressure, right? In the high altitude, you have low pressure, you have low atmospheric oxygen, whereas in deep sea, you face high pressure. Now, when you go deep inside the sea, like those deep sea divers or crew of submarines, right? Or those who go deep in the mines, right? Occasional workers. So what they face is they face a lot of pressure, high pressure. Now, what happens when you go keep going down deep, your blood, it dissolves the gas in that high pressure environment. So a lot of gas, a lot of nitrogen gets soluble in your blood, right? And when you try to come up, that nitrogen gets released and it may block your arteries and blood vessels and capillaries or veins, and that can be fatal. Okay, so there is also a science into how these workers or these soldiers who are inside, or the crew members who are in the submarines, or the divers or the miners, how they are going to adapt slowly into that environment so that they may not face this type of situation. So over here you can see that inside the submarine, these are the crews, and you can see that these are also not easy tasks to operate in those environments. They are locked down there, right? Though the chamber is pressurized, but still they have to face those type of problems. And over here you can see one crew member is undergoing an exercise which has been designed by an physiologist, because he understands what normal physiological process needs to be going on inside that crew member, so that he does not encounter all those challenges of high pressure inside the submarine. Now, another project of NASA, which I want to tell you, is the NASA Extreme Environment Mission Operation. Over here, there is a capsule habitat, right, about deep inside the ocean, where these astronauts are trained, right, and they are known as aquanauts, right? They have named them aquanauts because you see deep inside the ocean also it is a similar type of environment which the astronauts might face in the space, right? So over here, if I can zoom out, show you the activity which this aquanaut is doing. Yes. A Nemo 14 aquanaut practices shoveling underwater just as an astronaut would shovel to collect soil samples on another planet. So you can see they have created an environment, right, inside the deep sea where, you know, these operators can go and experience the same type of environment which they would experience whether if they were in space. So this is another project of NASA. Now, these are the situations in deep sea where you face oxygen toxicity, right, at different levels of the sea, deep inside the sea. Okay, and you may face nitrogen narcosis, right, which is life-threatening, which I was talking about. Nitrogen might get dissolved in your blood at higher depths, and when you try to come out of the water, that nitrogen comes out of the blood, and it may block your arteries, your small blood vessels, your capillaries, and that can be very fatal. Now, this is photographs showing a miner, right, who is working inside a mine. This mine might be very deep. Okay, so apart from that depth of the mine. He is subject to several forms of dust particles in this mine, some toxic substances, right? So we can really imagine that what his body might be facing when he's working in that such type of environment. Right? So you can only imagine. Since we are in physiology, we are studying physiology. We know that for doing that type of activity, what stress and what type of environment he's been exposed to, and what harm can cause. So if he works for longer period in this type of mines in the underground, right? It may be quite harmful for him. So we have to schedule the time duration. We have to fix a particular specific time period for which this miner can get inside and actually stay there. After that, he should be taken out. If he's not taken out for after that duration, he might show symptoms which would be harmful. Now, there is an institute in India, which is the National Institute of Miners' Health at Nagpur, where their main objective is promotion of health and prevention of disease among persons employed in mines and mineral-based industry. So you can see that if you want to care about the health and if you want to prevent disease among the miners, right, you need to do a lot of research. You need to do a lot of study on them in actual field situation. Then only you can come to a conclusion. Okay, fine, he can stay there for 2 hours maximum. If he stays for a longer period, it might be harmful for him. So this is where you can see into their activity what type of work this institute does. Okay. The next avenue which I'm going to talk about is ergonomics and work physiology. Now, ergonomics basically deals with the human, right? The dimensions of the human. We consider the dimensions of the human. See, we are not as small as an ant or as big as an elephant. We have specific body dimension. Okay. Now, if we are going to design something for us to operate, for humans to operate, then it should be designed in that way. It should be designed considering the human. Now, in the figure, you can see a man who is sitting in a car, right? And you can see that what all dimensions have been taken into consideration. If the roof of the car, right, if it was a little bit down, then it would have touched his head, and it would have been very uncomfortable for him to drive. And you can see his legs, the distance of the brake from his legs, it should be appropriate. It should be according to the dimension of his foot when he is seated. So there are several body dimensions which we measure, and those measurement of body dimensions are known as anthropometry. Right? We have anthropometric rod, we have anthropometric tape, right, and calipers for measuring every body dimension. Okay. So by using those body dimension, what we do the study on a population. We collect information. Even you all can do it. You can collect information about several body dimensions among the students of your university, so that you can get a data which can be used for any future designing purpose. You want to design something, or you want to give the data to some institute, or you want to give the data to some corporate agency who want to design a product, right? They can use the data and you can benefit from that. Okay, you can be ergonomist. So over here you can see, well, he is a professor in IIT Guwahati in the Department of Design. He's a very good friend of mine. We both did a PhD from AIPAS in the same lab with Professor Sogato Kormokar, and I give him due credit for giving me this picture of him. And so in the next level, there are simulators, there are labs where there are actual simulators, driving simulators, where a human is seated in the driving position and various measurements are being taken, so that this particular design, the particular design for the driver's seat, for the steering, for the brakes, for the roof of the car, and everything, for the mirror, right? Everything can be designed in a particular position. Okay, so that the operator or the driver does not face any difficulty while driving. Now, again, you can see over here, this is a model, right? This is a human model, this is a digital model, and this digital model is built up using the various body dimensions. The thing that which I was telling you, that you can take your friend's body dimension, say about 500 students you have in your university, you can take their body dimension, you have a software, digital software, where you can put every body dimension in them, in that software, and it will give you an average man, right? It will build, that software will build you, will give you an average man, and you can take that average man and you can put it in simulators. Now these are AutoCAD simulators. You know, you must have heard of AutoCAD, an engineering software. So you can put that digital human in that AutoCAD model of a vehicle or of an, say, aeroplane or anything, right? Any vehicle or any transportation thing, and you can actually design the seat, you can actually design the console and everything. Okay, so this is also area of application of physiology, ergonomics. Now you can see this is the cockpit of the fighter aircraft. Okay, so you can see how many consoles there are, and I'm sure that if I would have been seated over here, I would have been confused and I would have crashed. Okay, so you need to design these consoles in such a way that the most important switch is within the reach of that fighter pilot, so that he can easily, suppose an accident happens and he has to eject out, right? So that is the most, I think, according to me, is the most important switch, which has to be within the reach of that fighter pilot. Okay, so for that thing to be placed within the reach of that pilot, you need to have a dimension of the reach, of the arm reach of that pilot, or the, and you cannot design it for a single person. So you need to have that arm reach dimension for, say, all the pilots of Indian Air Force. Then only you can design that particular console, and then only you can fit that very important switch where the pilot can eject out during an accident, so that he's safe, he can land in a parachute, right? So all these things are taken into consideration, and you can see in the picture below. Now this is a simulator. This is a simulator where a pilot is seated and he has the consoles in front of him, and the consoles are designed, or they are put in place taking feedback from this pilot, right? He has this is a eye movement recorder where we can actually record the movement of our eyes, right? And we get parameters, because you know our eyes, there is the pupil, right? The aperture and the diameter of the pupil. It defines that how much workload you are facing while doing the task. If the pupil is dilated more, then that means that this task which the operator is doing is difficult for him. If the diameter of the pupil is less, then that task is appropriate for him. So you want the task to be less demanding so that it can be carried out very effectively. So for that, what we need to do is, while doing that task in that particular setup, right, we measure all those parameters. So you can see how it is very much related to our physiology. Okay. So this is where also you can get into. Now I'll come into the corporate part, right? You know, we see so many attractive things, right, which are sold to us through advertisements, right? They're made attractive. Okay, so once this is the picture of I think an inhaler. Okay, so I don't know whether you use it or not, but we all are most of us are acquainted with it, and the color of the inhaler has been made orange, right? So there is a lot of research into it. Why the color has been made orange and not red or not green? So you see over here it is written, why orange? Because it is an energetic color and it evokes the feeling of enthusiasm and warmth for the user, and it draws attention faster in the emergency situation. Okay, suppose you need that very badly, right? There are a lot of things on your table, so you need to spot it and quickly use it. so that you do not suffocate. Okay, so that type of situation is an emergency situation. So you need to give that thing a color by which you can easily identify that thing and use it. So this is how products have been made, attracting and user friendly by the corporates, by means of advertisement, by means of aesthetics, and all by using the science of ergonomics. Okay, and of course, it is a part of physiology. Well, Dr. Sudipto, I don't. How much time do I have?
You can continue, Aparna ma'am. Can we continue?
Because I think a lot of things.
Yes, Dr.
I
Mosam.
know.
Dr. Mosam, if you don't have any issues, you can continue.
Okay, you can continue.
Because your talk is very, very interesting and
very interesting one, and it's very informative for the students.
Very informative, very interesting for
us. So I'll continue, right?
Yes, yes, please.
If you can spare your time, you can continue.
Well, I was talking about design. Now, in India, in Ahmedabad, you have an institute which is dedicated to design, and it is the National Institute of Design. You can go to the website, right? You can go what all they do, and you can see that what it does. It is written over here. It provides both design education as well as design services to various sectors, design practice, which is a significant part of design and education at NID. So they have integrated design services, they have outreach programs, they have continued education programs, and they have a placement cell also where they engage their students. And you can see that these are the photographs of I think these are monorail or something like that. So they are also involved in designing this, because you see, if you must have traveled by local train, you must have traveled by sleeper class, you must have traveled by AC, right? You must have traveled, some of you must have traveled by first class. So you have noted the differences in comfort, right, while traveling in all those different types of classes in the Indian Railways. So that is how design can be used to make your journey or your work comfortable. Okay, so how will you design it? The design has to be carried out from the human perspective, right? You're not going to design it for an elephant. You're going to design it for yourself. Okay, so if you're going to design it for yourself only, then you need to consider your body dimension, your cognitive function, right? Your comforts, right? Your perceptions. Everything has to be taken into consideration while designing those things. Then only it will be acceptable and comfortable. So NID does that for you, and you all can get engaged with this type of work. Now, in the corporate area, you must have heard of Godrej, very famous, right? Indian corporate house, and they have an ergonomics division in Godrej Ontario, where what they do is they recommend for safety at workplace. Right over here, you can see that in this picture, you can see that how in this pandemic situation the workers are seated in their office. How much minimum distance has to be maintained from each other. So all these things are taken into consideration. It is not only that you have to design the desk or you have to design the chair or things like that. You can design every aspect of your work life, right, for your safety, for maintaining safety. And we all know that in this pandemic situation, it is not like that before, where we will sit side by side in our office and do our work, right? So we need to maintain a distance. So all these things are taken into consideration by Godrej. They provide consultancy service. They engage ergonomists, right? So where you can also be engaged. Okay. Now, next is neurophysiology. I've covered ergonomics and work physiology. Now, I would like to tell you something about neurophysiology. Now, I told you that neurophysiology is about doing something, about receiving something, or nerves. We have neurons. The neurons, they receive the information, they send it to the brain, right? The brain then sends the information down, the motor information down to the spinal cord, through the nerves to the muscles, and the muscles contract and we do a movement. What happens when we have a paralyzed patient? Okay, so can we apply the science of neurophysiology for betterment of their life? Now, this is one photograph which shows that this is a robotic arm, right? And you can see a device which is attached to this patient, and this device actually records the brain waves. Now, she is thirsty and she wants to drink, right? So those waves are being sensed by this sensor placed on the scalp of this patient, and it receives those waves, right? It transduces those waves and it gives the signal to this robotic arm, right? Pick up the bottle and feed her, right? So this is how you see that neurophysiology, which is of course a branch of physiology, can be applied in in betterment uh, of an individual who is suffering from paralysis. And if you see the mechanism behind how this technology works, in the next slide I'll show you. Okay, now see, these are the sensors which have been placed on the scalp. They receive the neural activity from the brain. We have a decoder here, and the decoder decodes the information. Now, these are sensory signals which are being decoded. They are decoded and then they are fed to an external stimulator. The external stimulator is attached to the muscles of the arm, and what it does, it moves this mobile arm support whenever this individual feels, right? When he feels the urge to move this mobile support, right? The brain waves, the feeling or the brain waves involved in that feeling is picked up by the sensors. They are fed to the decoder, and the decoder gives it to the external simulator, which in turn is connected with the muscles of the arm, and the arm moves and the mobile arm support moves. So this is how in my previous slide this robotic arm technology works. So this is a very interesting field where we can uh, use the application of physiology, neurophysiology. Well, the next avenue which I am going to talk about is very common nowadays, immunology, right? So what is immunology? So everybody is developing vaccines. Why vaccines? Because these vaccines will impart immunity to the COVID-19 the coronavirus, right? So here you can see an immunologist. You can be one of them. You can be an immunologist from physiology also, because in physiology, I'm sure you learn a lot of immunology, right? No other subject speaks about immunology like physiology does. Okay, so you have a holistic knowledge about the entire human body, where you can apply your knowledge to systems of the immune organs, the immune systems, and how the immune system defends our body. So over here you can see immunologist is involved in doing some experiments, immunological experiments in the laboratory, right? And you can see in the lower part of this photograph on the slide, this is maybe a virus or a bacteria, right? And these are the antibodies, right? The antibodies will uh, will interact with this antigen, or which can be a foreign pathogen or anything like that, and it will neutralize this pathogen. So there is a lot of research going on nowadays in developing vaccines, newer vaccines coming every day, right? So a lot of money put into effort, put into the thing, right? A lot of human resource, trained human resource, right? Like you, right? And engaged in doing all these things. It is not that you need to get into a lab to do this sort of activity, this sort of things, right? You can be a writer. You can write some articles on this, right? If you have an idea, just express it in the form of writing, publish it, right? Send an email to somebody, send an email to an expert. See, I'm studying in AMITY in physiology. I have this idea. See if you can uh, give a look into it, right? Who knows that may be a very novel idea. Okay, and you can nowadays, the very new thing has come up, like building startups, right? Two three friends coming together and they are starting a small startup from their idea. So the slide, the topic of my discussion was with you, ignited minds. The idea that plays in your head, we are starved of ideas, right? We have become aged, but you are energetic, right? You're full of energy and you have plenty of idea in your head. So try to work it out. Okay, the next thing is molecular biology and biochemistry, where we study what's inside the genes, what's inside the chromosomes, right? And we study about DNA, we study about the various diseases, genetic diseases, uh, apply gene technology, to help cure those genetic diseases, right? And there are a lot of applications in this field where we as physiologists can also enter into. And the last thing, the basic thing, which I had to start with, but instead I choose not to start with it, right? Because we all know about it. So that is cellular physiology. If you understand the physiology of the cell, I can assure you that you won't find it difficult to fit yourself in any of those, scopes of physiology which I told you in my lecture. So this is one area which is very interesting, right? You have membrane transport processes. You have, what to say, molecular trafficking inside the cells, right? Movement of molecules, movement of organelles inside the cell. So all these things and many more, they make up the cellular physiology. So you can get into research in cellular physiology as a physiologist, because of course you learn a lot about cells in your syllabus. I'm sure you have a lot about cells in your syllabus. So why not you get into the depth of it and you prepare yourself so that you can also contribute in this field. So I think these are the image credits which I took from the internet. And okay, another thing about that, what Sudipto sir was telling, that I did my PhD in Antarctica. Now, this is one of the extreme environments. This is the Concordia station of France, right? And Antarctica is now, they say that it is white Mars. They want to send humans to Mars, right? So for that, they are finding analogs. They are building analogs. So in Antarctica, they have this. France has built a station which is known as Concordia station, and there they are studying the psychological aspects, right? Because you see, it is very isolated, right? You cannot go there if you wish to, right? Because the winters are so harsh, you cannot fly to that point. Okay, so it is very isolated. Only the crew members who go there, they stay for about a year. I also participated in the Indian Antarctic expedition. So I went there in December and I spent the whole year. And then I came back the next year in April. I came back to India. So you can imagine that is a long duration in isolation. So how you can cope, and in space also you don't know how long it will take and how you can cope up with that type of isolation, right? So human exploration analog research has been carried out. It's a very interesting book. If you can find it, go through it, right? Very nicely written, very lucid. So this is another area which you can explore. It is known as polar human physiology and medicine. How these expeditioners, they cope up in such environment, extreme environment, in that harsh cold, in that extreme isolation, in that altered photoperiodic condition. Because in Antarctica, the sun never sets for about 6 months. You wake up in the morning in the summer to brush your teeth, you see daylight, and you go to your bed at say 9 or 10, right? You see daylight. So how you sleep, how your circadian physiology, how your body reacts to that altered photoperiodic condition. So that is a lot of science involved. Uh, So this is one area also which you can explore. This is one picture of mine which I wanted to share with you. The penguins in Antarctica. I'll quickly go through. This is the Indian Antarctic Station, AMITY, and you can see in the background, this is the beautiful Aurora Australis, right, which occurs due to this magnetic storm, which enters into the ionosphere of the Earth, and you get like Diwali lights. You get to see like this in the sky. This is me in the background of an aurora. This is the ship by which we were taken to Antarctica and see penguins. This is me. This is a skidoo by which we used to take materials from the station, from the Indian Antarctic Station, to places where we need to go for our research work. This is the flight which comes in the summer months, and it brings the food and all other essential equipments which are required for us. Well, this is the vehicle which you can actually run there, because ordinary vehicles, the tires will skid. So these are piston blue by Mercedes-Benz. These are very expensive vehicles, and you see that the tires, these are not tires, but these are chains like the tanks which we have. So I was driving one of them. And so thank you. I hope that I have made justice in this orientation by giving you, by orienting you all, dear students. And I would like to end.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Mosam. It was a fascinating lecture, and I believe all the students have got a new perspective of looking at their careers from now on. So from your lecture, that you can understand that physiology is such a fascinating subject, and it has so many opportunities if your aspirations are high, and if you set your goal and do it properly, you can go into so many different diverse areas, and you can explore them. You can make your career. It is not only that the work you will do, but you can also make good money also if you are doing that type of a work. So thank you so much for giving your lecture on this particular topic, and enlightening our students to get a nice career in future. So I would request Aparna ma'am, if you can please say something.
Yes, thank you so much, Dr. Mosam, for a very informative and very interesting talk for our students. Really, you have told us really the role of physiologists and the opportunities of the physiologists and the scope of physiologists to our students. I think our students also have enjoyed and they have gained out very beneficial knowledge from your lecture. Thank you so much. So we look forward for your future collaboration with our institute. We'll invite you for the talks and the lectures for our students. So thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Mosam, for accepting our invitation and delivering your very valuable lecture for our students for our orientation program. Thank you so much.
And any student want to ask something to Mosam sir, Dr. Bhattacharya, any student want to ask? You can ask any question if you have.
Yes, students, you can discuss, you can ask, you can interact with Dr. Mosam Bhattacharya sir.
Yeah, and if Dr. Jaita would like to say something or add something, you can also do that. No problem. Anybody, any student have any query in mind?
I think they didn't find it interesting.
Yeah, they found it interesting. I think they are just too much mesmerized with your total lecture, so they could not even imagine that so many opportunities are kind of things are happening in physiology all around the world.
Because our students, they have an idea that a physiologist does not have any very good scope in the world, but at least from your lecture, I think they can find out so many revenues are there.
and you can only see the peak of the iceberg. There are
Yeah.
lots of things that you can do from physiology. You can go to any field that you like.
Any
Absolutely.
That's
students
why
from
it's called the mother.
Diganta or any other students from this batch?
Diganto, from your batchmates, would you like to say something, or just give a a few words from Diganto?
Yes, sir. So like I listened to the whole lecture and it was really fascinating that like there are so many fields that we can go in the future and that can be like we can do so many things in the field of physiology. Like it was really good hearing, and I don't think so, like the students have questions since like things were explained really well, and I guess like people can think of like because we are in our last years, like people can think of what they can do in the future with the help of this lecture, like whatever we learn from it.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay. Pratik.
Pratik would like to say something.
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Actually, I heard all of it that sir told us, and it was really amazing. And because
Switch
I
on your
wanted, I
camera. Pratik, switch on your camera.
yes, ma'am. Ma'am, am I visible?
Okay, it might take some time. You can continue with your
Okay, you
talk.
please continue. Yeah.
Okay. As I heard all the what sir told us, so when I joined in the BSc, my BSc, I wanted to be a physiologist, I would say. So that this lecture it helped me a lot to clarify my doubts, to clarify my path ahead, as I have completed my BSc now. So I am more clear that what I will be taking in my masters and further in the PhD. So I am very thankful to sir that he gave the lecture.
Devarshini.
Great. That's nice.
Devarshini from MSc or any other students
Thank
from MSc.
Yes, yes, it was really fascinating. And I think prior to this, we had a conscience that physiologists are restricted only to the labs and research. But apart from it, we have many expeditions outside also. So thank you very much, sir.
I'm sure you all will explore it.
Jenna.
I think,
Jenna.
ma'am, they didn't join.
Okay,
No,
no
no.
problem.
Okay. Zanab is there anyway.
I think so.
Yes,
She.
Okay, okay.
yes, sir.
Yeah,
Jenna,
Zanab would
please.
like to say a
Yeah.
few words, maybe.
Yes, sir. The lecture sir gave was very important because in my bachelor's also I got to know from few faculties कि after MSc you can only go in research. There is nothing you can do, and for a fact, without PhD you are nothing. Like sort of like that. And now after listening to what sir said, what all we can go explore, what all we can be a part of in our future, it is very nice to know, and I think it was needed because in Google we don't get answers to what we ask, and there are very confusing answers, but with sir's lecture it became very clear and very easy to know that yes, there is still some hope.
Yeah, I mean, he has like completely opened up the whole plethora of things that what is available in physiology. At least all the different fields, starting from cell biology to ergonomics. I think few topics are not there like biostatistics and all, but every
He
other
was.
topic were there. Okay, so you can understand like physiology why we call it a mother subject. May I request Mr. Strinjoy, are you there? Okay, so maybe can you
Yes,
sum up a bit?
yes, absolutely. Good evening, sir, and good evening, Mosham sir. My name is Srinjoy. I'm the project JRF working with Sudipta sir over here on
Wow,
his project.
that's great. That's
Yes,
nice.
yes. So physiology. So my background is from like I did my B.Sc in microbiology and my MSc in biological sciences. So which was like a concoction of various subjects, various different subjects. So my exposure to physiology was whatever exposure and whatever kind of discussions I've had with Sudipta sir over here. Alright, so I mean, the way you explained, the entire, this is a question that I have had in my bachelor's, in my master's, and a lot of people have throughout their journey. I'm pretty sure when all of you were also students. You all had this question, like, what do we do after this? So, and it was so enlightening to know all the detailed fields that you described. And two of those were very interesting to me. Was your Antarctic expedition. I mean, not many people get that opportunity. Not many people are so lucky to actually be able to go to Antarctica. And another thing was space physiology. Like, I know astrobiology is one of my, it intrigues me a lot. So thank you for introducing this topic to the students as well, and even me. I was listening throughout, and it was really, really informative. So thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, Pratik. Thank you, Sinjoy.
Yeah.
Okay. So thank you, Mosam. Dr. Mosam, thank you very much. So, madam, shall we conclude the meeting
Yeah, we
then?
can conclude the meeting. Thank you so much.
So
Thank you,
yeah, I would
everyone,
like
for
to
joining
thank
us.
Aparna ma'am, Sandhya ma'am, Lakshmi ma'am, all are here, Sinjoy, and also all the B.Sc 5th Sem and other students who have joined in for this special lecture. So thank you so much. Thank you, everybody. So I am stopping the recording right here. Thank you.
Okay, sorry. Thank you so much. Thank you,
Yes,
everyone.
ma'am. Thanks, sir.
Thank you, Mosan.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank